And today's job is going to involve fixing this problem. Yeah, you hear that? No, folks, that's not a squeaking belt. That is the clutch, because every time I actuate the clutch, it makes that noise. So, clutch is shot. Something's coming apart in there. And that means I got to pull this ZF5 transmission out of this 1993 Ford, fix that clutch. So, step one here is going to be to drain the fluid out of the transfer case and transmission. To get to the transfer case, I'm going to have to pull this skid plate out. Appears to be a 10 millimeter or the equivalent standard size. Now that we have that down, we have access to the drain plug, which just so happens to be the size of a 1/2-inch ratchet. No socket necessary, I suppose. And that doesn't look awful, but it could be replaced. While that's draining, we'll move along to the rear diff. Get yourself a jack stand to support drive shaft, and let's get this universal joint out. In my case, these are T40 Torx holding this on. Now, make sure your e-brake's on, wheels are chocked. Pop that out at the end of your ratchet, support it on your jack stand. All right. All right. And carrier bearing. And then to try to keep things clean and not scratched, now we're onto the front drive line on the transfer case side. This for me is 5/16 12-point bolts. I have the front hubs locked in so that this won't spin on me. Those are awfully tight. And last one. I'm going to go ahead and leave one bolt nut moved to the front. These appear to be a 1/2 inch. Go ahead and take your last bolt out on the transfer case side. Then we'll pop this side out. Cross members here to support for you. And that one. Oh. Placing all of them. Got that out of the way. Here's a sensor and some linkage up here that we got to get out. Looking at this, I guess I should just disconnect the shifter, get these two bolts out, and just let this whole bracket come with the transfer case. think that's my best chance to not break anything. That nice and loose. Shifter pops right up out of there. Get that out of the way. Survey says, yeah, that's a 13/16. Oh my gosh. Yeah, got that one. Two. Alright. That is. Now we're going to drain the transmission fluid that I said we should drain first. Let's see. Oh, jeez. Not too much of a mess. It's worth mentioning that I am draining the transmission fluid because I think I'm going to do the input shaft seal on the transmission while I'm here. But if you're going to take the transmission and transfer case as one piece out of here, I don't think you necessarily have to take the fluid out of the transmission. The transfer case, sure, because it's going to drain out of the slip yoke as soon as you pull your drive line out, but transmission, I don't think so, but I don't know. And while we're on the topic, I alluded to earlier in the video that I was going to take the transfer case off separate and then take the transmission off after that. I'm now probably going to take them off in one unit because someone's going to let me borrow a transmission jack later this weekend, and I think I can handle the whole thing if I have a transmission jack. The reason why I was going to take it off transfer case first and then the transmission was because I thought I was going to have to do it with just regular floor jacks, and I knew it would just be more manageable the smaller the parts I was taking off. But both are options. Just make sure you can handle whatever you decide to take off. Next, we're going to get the starter off. Your battery should of course be disconnected before you take the starter off. This is a 1/2 inch. There's one on this front side, but then there's another one on this back side. Can't quite see from there, but if we turn you around, it's up here. It's just hard to get to. So, I don't know, socket with an extension will probably get me there. I think half of the shim just fell out of there. We'll have to address that. Either that or that's what was making all the noise inside my clutch. Just gonna set this on top of the leaf spring because it makes it there. So, starter's out. Alright, for this, you got little clippies on the back here. You gotta detach. Sometimes they can be a little pain. Yeah, that's it. And just bring that out. Wonder if they sell just this bushing that was on the end here. Not sure or not, but it seems like it's been worn through for a while. Anyway, tuck your slave cylinder up somewhere. Alright, back on the top side now, which is nice because I'm tired of laying on the ground. Coming down here to the gear shifter. There's a base here. This is plastic, this is rubber. If you just kind of peel up the edge, the corner, the rubber part, there are Phillips head screws in here. So 4 of them. Trying to get the gear shifter out of the way. So once you got these 4 bolts out, kind of just gently peeled up. And then there's also a bottom seal layer here. Also was connected with those same 4 bolts you already took out. So no need to do anything else there. There's 2 bolts in here connecting the shifter to the shift stub. So now we just have this shift stub stuck in here, which we can also take out. There's 4 more bolts here, and I may do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this shift stub out now for 2 reasons. One, I see it being a clearance issue and getting hung up when I'm trying to take this transmission out, and I just don't want to deal with it. And 2, when I refill the transmission, I'm going to refill it through the shift lever hole because it takes forever to pump 4 quarts into this transmission using one of those little hand pumps. This seems to be a 5mm. Something to be careful with. There are 2 Teflon deals here that can fall off. When you're pulling it up vertically, you shouldn't really have to worry about it, but if you tilt it over like this to pull it out, just make sure to be careful that one of these doesn't fall off into the transmission. We'll get this out of the way and stuff a rag in there or something. So let's just put our paper towel in there, and we got a couple more things to do on the bottom side. Alright, one is, you remember that we disconnected a plug over here near the transfer case. That's good. Now if you follow that line up to the front of the transmission, there's going to be this little offshoot here that goes to the top of your bell housing, all the way up here. And it's hard, but I've got mine off now so that I can show you. It's one of these guys. So you have to kind of peel back these as you're pulling it back. Now basically the last thing to do, this center support will ultimately have to come all the way out, which there's bolts on the sides to do that, but we're not going to do that until we can support the transmission because we don't want it to hang from the bell housing. So until I get the transmissions jack here, which I do not have at my house yet, the last thing we can really do is to disconnect the rear transmission mount to get as much work as I can done. Well, we're back with the transmission jack, so let's get the rest of the bolts out so we can pull this transmission out. Alright, so we're here on the passenger side of the bell housing. Our first bolt is up here next to where my air injection is. And our next one is in the same vicinity, but just a little further up here. This way, and get first bolt here on the driver's side. And same thing, is another one just a little further up. Now for the two hardest ones, which are on the very top of the transmission. This driver's side top bolt is it's hard to get to no matter what you do. I ended up going with a short socket with a swivel, and that seemed to do it, but you can also kind of access it from the top side, so that might work for you if this isn't working for you. You'll notice I left the cross member in. I'm gonna take that out, but after I get to all the bolts, because I gotta have the transmission jack under here, and that's gonna be in the way, and I don't want to try to break bolts loose with something in the way. While I'm down here, there's two more things I found that you have to remove. One is all of the connections of the cross member here. And the other is the O2 sensor has a connector that just attaches to the transmission, doesn't plug into it. I got all the bolts out except for one. The one that I didn't get out I can access from the top side. So that means it's time to get jacks under here and take this cross member support out and the last bolt and pull this thing out of here. We're real close. Alright, for this cross member, there's one bolt here, which I've already loosened. There's another two up here above the exhaust, real convenient. So, passenger side, got this guy out. I took these two out that are right above the exhaust. I think you can leave the gusset in, detach the bottom of it from the cross member, and then take the bolts out of this side, slide it out. That's what we're going with. Let's take these last three bolts off for this support. Outside is an 18, inside is a 15. Now I left one last bolt on the top of the transmission that I didn't get to yet, and I did that because I can actually get to it from the top side, and so the transmission jack won't be in the way. So yeah, down there. You'll be able to see it better if you got your head in there. This thing seems to come out once you get those two top bolts out. They seem to guide the fuel lines down the top of the bell housing. Go ahead and leave that there. Hey, this is tight. I wasn't going to take this off at first because I didn't think I had to, but looking at it, it's very obvious that it wouldn't clear the flywheel. So this obviously has to come out too, I guess. At this point, I'm just working this transmission out. I have all the bolts out, it's just really stuck and seized in there. So basically what I did is I started wiggling the transmission back and forth. I put a ratchet strap on the transfer case to make sure that I was pulling away from the motor, and I even used a pry bar at certain times to try to get myself some separation. And eventually I was able to get the input shaft of the transmission to separate from the clutch. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of effort. It's pretty normal. Don't be too concerned if it won't separate immediately as easy as you would like it to. Of course, always ensure that you've removed all of the bolts and that you're not missing one. But you know, it's not going to be effortless to pull this thing away from the motor. Well, I think I found the problem. It's probably not supposed to be that many pieces, huh? Huh. Yeah, that sucks. Oh, we got the throwout bearing off of there. That was our problem, but I'm here already, so I'm gonna do the clutch anyway. So we got the transmission pushed back. We'll go ahead and start taking the clutch apart. Before we get too far, I'm gonna toss this clutch alignment tool in here, hopefully. They say don't breathe that, so I'm not gonna breathe. Alright, so I bought a flywheel. So we're gonna take this one off, and then I also bought a pilot bearing, so I'll have to get that one out too. Let's see what I have to get this first. The slide hammer didn't work, so picked up one of these guys from Harbor Freight. It's a screw type. We'll see how that works. There we go. Harbor Freight puller, much better than the slide hammer version. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I'm just going to assume that the motor's going to try to spin when I start to take these bolts off, so we're going to put one of the bell housing bolts back in, if I can get it to thread. And we're going to put one of the old clutch bolts in. Just let that spin over there. Crack that. More there. All right. It's really heavy. All right, that, I think we're all done with disassembly. I gotta clean this out because I kind of made a mess. I thought I was going to be able to do the rear main seal while I did this job, but after some research I found out that you actually have to pull the oil pan for that. So that's kind of a bummer because, as you can see, it's obviously leaking, but we're all good on disassembly here. Do some quick cleanup and then reassembly.